We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca. In the quiet moments of our lives when the world is still, we are left alone with our thoughts. It's in these moments that our true selves emerge, unshielded by the distractions of daily life. Expose your own ego before it destroys you. Chapter 1. Understanding the ego. The term ego often conjures images of arrogance, self-centeredness, or inflated self-importance. In popular culture, it is frequently associated with negative traits, vanity, pride, and a sense of superiority. However, from a Stoic perspective, the ego is not merely a source of vanity or self-obsession. It is a fundamental aspect of self-awareness and understanding our place within the vast tapestry of existence. To the Stoics, the ego is not an enemy to be destroyed, but a tool to be understood and mastered. The Stoic view of the ego, Stoicism, teaches that the ego, when left unchecked, can distort our perception of reality. It can amplify our fears, inflate our desires, and create unnecessary suffering. Yet, when understood and managed, the ego can serve as a guide to self-awareness and personal growth. The Stoics believe that true freedom comes from aligning our ego with reason and virtue, rather than allowing it to be driven by external validation or irrational impulses. Epictetus, the former slave-turned-philosopher, emphasized the importance of self-awareness when he said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." This statement underscores the Stoic belief that understanding oneself, our desires, fears, and motivations is the first step toward living a virtuous and fulfilling life. The ego and the dichotomy of control. One of the central tenets of Stoicism is the dichotomy of control, the idea that some things are within our control, while others are not. Our thoughts, actions, and reactions are within our control, but external events, other people's opinions, and the outcomes of our efforts are not. The ego often blurs this distinction, leading us to waste energy on things we cannot change while neglecting what we can. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This reminder is crucial in understanding the ego. When we allow our ego to attach itself to external outcomes, such as wealth, fame, or the approval of others, we set ourselves up for disappointment and suffering. By focusing instead on what we can control, our thoughts, actions, and attitudes, we reclaim our power and reduce the ego's hold over us. The ego as a source of suffering. Seneca, one of the most eloquent Stoic philosophers, observed that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. This profound insight highlights how the ego often creates unnecessary suffering by magnifying our fears and desires. For example, we might fear failure, rejection, or loss, even when these events have not yet occurred, and may never occur. Similarly, we might desire wealth, status, or recognition, imagining that these things will bring us happiness, only to find that they leave us feeling empty. The ego thrives on comparison and competition, constantly measuring itself against others and seeking validation. This can lead to envy, resentment, and a sense of inadequacy. As Epictetus warned, "He who is not content with what he has would not be content with what he would like to have." By recognizing the ego's tendency to create dissatisfaction, we can begin to free ourselves from its grip. The ego and the illusion of control. Another way the ego distorts our perception is by creating the illusion of control. We often believe that we can control external events or other people's actions, only to be reminded of our limitations. This illusion can lead to frustration, anger, and a sense of helplessness. Marcus Aurelius offered a remedy for this when he wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." By accepting what we cannot control and focusing on how we respond to it, we can reduce the ego's influence and find peace in the present moment. The ego and the pursuit of virtue. The Stoics believed that the ultimate goal of life is to live in accordance with virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. The ego, when aligned with these virtues, can serve as a force for good. It can motivate us to improve ourselves, to act with integrity, and to contribute to the well-being of others. However, when the ego is driven by vice, such as greed, envy, or pride, it becomes a source of suffering. As Seneca noted, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." By cultivating virtues and aligning our ego with them, we can transform it from a source of suffering into a tool for growth. Practical steps to master the ego practice. Self-reflection. Regularly examine your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Ask yourself, what is driving me? Are my desires and fears rooted in reality, or are they products of my imagination? Focus on what you can control. Remind yourself of the dichotomy of control. Direct your energy toward your thoughts, actions, and attitudes, rather than external outcomes. Cultivate gratitude. Shift your focus from what you lack to what you have. As Marcus Aurelius advised, when you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. Embrace impermanence. Recognize that everything in life is transient. By accepting the impermanence of external things, you can reduce the ego's attachment to them. Practice humility. Remember that you are part of a larger whole. As Epictetus said, "You are a little soul carrying around a corpse." This reminder can help you maintain perspective and avoid the pitfalls of arrogance. Align with virtue. Strive to live in accordance with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Let these virtues guide your actions and decisions. The ego, when understood and managed, is not an enemy but a tool for self-awareness and growth. By aligning it with reason and virtue, we can reduce its capacity to create suffering and harness its potential to guide us toward a fulfilling life. As Seneca wisely observed, the greatest obstacle to living is expectation, which depends on tomorrow and wastes today. By focusing on the present moment and cultivating inner peace, we can master the ego and live in harmony with the Stoic ideal of virtue. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Let your thoughts be guided by wisdom, your actions by virtue, and your ego by self-awareness. In doing so, you will find the strength and clarity to navigate life's challenges with grace and resilience. Chapter 2. The Dangers of an Unchecked Ego. An unchecked ego can lead us astray, blinding us to our limitations and fostering a false sense of invincibility. This hubris alienates us from others and sets the stage for personal downfall. The ego, in psychological terms, represents our conscious identity, the I that we present to the world. While a healthy ego contributes to self-confidence and assertiveness, an unchecked ego can distort our self-perception, leading to arrogance and detachment from reality. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, emphasized the importance of balancing the ego within the broader psyche. He suggested that the first half of life involves building and solidifying the ego, establishing our identity and place in the world. However, as we progress, there comes a pivotal shift. The first half of life is devoted to forming a healthy ego. The second half is going inward and letting go of it. Jung's insight emphasizes the journey of self-discovery, building our identity, and then transcending it to find deeper meaning. This process, known as individuation, involves integrating various aspects of the unconscious into conscious awareness, fostering a more holistic self. In parallel, Stoic philosophy offers profound insights into the perils of an unchecked ego. The Stoics advocated for humility, self-awareness, and the continuous examination of one's motives and actions. They recognized that an inflated ego not only distorts personal judgment but also disrupts social harmony. Seneca, a prominent Stoic philosopher, warned against the blinding nature of ego and pride. You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire. This duality highlights how ego-driven desires can lead us to overestimate our capabilities and underestimate potential risks, fostering a dangerous sense of invulnerability. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic thinker, practiced regular self-reflection to keep his ego in check. In his personal writings, he reminded himself, "Keep in mind how fast things pass by and are gone, those that are now and those to come." By acknowledging the transient nature of life and achievements, Marcus cultivated humility, recognizing that personal glory is fleeting and should not define one's sense of self. An unchecked ego can manifest in various detrimental ways. Distorted self-perception. Believing oneself to be infallible or superior can lead to poor decision-making and a refusal to acknowledge mistakes. Impaired relationships. Arrogance and self-centeredness can alienate friends, family, and colleagues, eroding trust and mutual respect. Resistance to growth. An inflated ego may cause an individual to dismiss feedback or constructive criticism, hindering personal and professional development. Increased stress and anxiety. Maintaining a facade of invincibility is exhausting and can lead to heightened stress levels, as one constantly strives to uphold an unrealistic self-image. To mitigate these dangers, both Jungian psychology and Stoic philosophy recommend practices aimed at self-regulation and humility. Self-reflection. Regular introspection helps identify ego-driven behaviors and thoughts. Journaling, meditation, or contemplative walks can facilitate this process. Embrace vulnerability. Acknowledging and accepting one's limitations fosters genuine connections with others and promotes personal growth. Seek diverse perspectives. Engaging with individuals who offer different viewpoints challenges egocentric thinking and broadens understanding. Practice gratitude. Recognizing the contributions of others and expressing appreciation shifts focus from self-centeredness to collective well-being. By consciously exposing and managing our ego, we pave the way for a more authentic and fulfilling life, grounded in reality and enriched by meaningful connections. Chapter 3. The Stoic Approach to Ego. The ego, as we have explored, is a complex and multifaceted aspect of the human experience. While it can be a source of suffering when left unchecked, it can also serve as a tool for self-awareness and growth when understood and managed. Stoicism offers a practical and philosophical framework for navigating the ego, emphasizing humility, self-reflection, and a clear distinction between what we can and cannot control. By aligning ourselves with these principles, we can free ourselves from the unnecessary burdens imposed by the ego and live in harmony with nature and our true purpose. The Stoic tools for managing the ego. Stoicism provides several tools and practices to help us manage the ego. These include humility, self-reflection, and the dichotomy of control. By integrating these practices into our daily lives, we can cultivate a healthier relationship with our ego and reduce its capacity to create suffering. 1. Humility. The antidote to arrogance. Humility is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. It involves recognizing our limitations, accepting our imperfections, and understanding our place within the larger context of the universe. The Stoics believed that arrogance and pride are distortions of the ego, leading us to overestimate our importance and underestimate the role of fate and external circumstances. Epictetus emphasized the importance of humility when he said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." This statement reminds us that true growth requires a willingness to let go of the need for external validation and to focus instead on internal development. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, also highlighted the value of humility. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. By cultivating humble thoughts and recognizing our interconnectedness with others, we can reduce the ego's tendency toward self-centeredness and arrogance. 2. Self-reflection. The path to self-awareness. Self-reflection is another essential tool for managing the ego. It involves regularly examining our thoughts, emotions, and actions to understand their underlying motivations. By practicing self-reflection, we can identify when the ego is driving us toward irrational fears, desires, or behaviors, and take steps to correct course. Seneca, one of the most eloquent Stoic philosophers, advocated for daily self-reflection. Assess your progress each day. What evils have you cured yourself of? What vices have you resisted? In what way are you better? This practice helps us stay aligned with our values and prevents the ego from leading us astray. Epictetus also stressed the importance of self-awareness. First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. By clearly defining our goals and values, we can ensure that our actions are guided by reason rather than the whims of the ego. 3. The dichotomy of control. Freeing ourselves from unnecessary burdens. One of the most powerful Stoic tools for managing the ego is the dichotomy of control, the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. The Stoics believed that much of our suffering arises from trying to control external events or other people's actions, which are ultimately beyond our power. By focusing instead on what we can control, our thoughts, actions, and attitudes, we can reduce the ego's influence and find greater peace. Epictetus articulated this principle clearly. The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control. This distinction allows us to let go of unnecessary worries and focus on what truly matters. Marcus Aurelius echoed this sentiment in Meditations. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. By accepting the limits of our control, we can free ourselves from the ego's tendency to create unnecessary suffering. The ego and alignment with nature. The Stoics believed that living in accordance with nature, both our own nature and the nature of the universe, is the key to a fulfilling life. This involves understanding our place within the larger whole and aligning our actions with reason and virtue. When the ego is aligned with nature, it serves as a tool for self-awareness and growth. However, when it is driven by irrational desires or fears, it becomes a source of suffering. By practicing humility, self-reflection, and the dichotomy of control, we can align our ego with nature and live in harmony with our true purpose. Seneca captured this idea beautifully. True happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future, not to amuse ourselves with either hopes or fears, but to rest satisfied with what we have, which is sufficient, for he that is so wants nothing. By focusing on the present moment and aligning our actions with virtue, we can reduce the ego's influence and find lasting peace. Practical steps for applying Stoic principles to the ego practice. Humility. Regularly remind yourself of your limitations and interconnectedness with others. Let go of the need for external validation and focus on internal growth. Engage in daily self-reflection. Set aside time each day to examine your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Ask yourself, what motivated me today? Were my actions aligned with my values? Apply the dichotomy of control. When faced with a challenge, identify what is within your control and what is not. Focus your energy on what you can change and let go of what you cannot. Cultivate gratitude. Shift your focus from what you lack to what you have. As Marcus Aurelius advised, when you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. Align with virtue. Strive to live in accordance with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Let these virtues guide your actions and decisions. Embrace impermanence. Recognize that everything in life is transient. By accepting the impermanence of external things, you can reduce the ego's attachment to them. The Stoic approach to the ego offers a powerful framework for managing this complex aspect of the human experience. By practicing humility, self-reflection, and the dichotomy of control, we can align our ego with nature and our true purpose, reducing its capacity to create suffering and harnessing its potential for growth. As Epictetus wisely observed, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. By focusing on our thoughts, actions, and attitudes, the things within our control, we can free ourselves from the unnecessary burdens imposed by the ego and live a life of virtue, peace, and fulfillment. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Let your thoughts be guided by reason, your actions by virtue, and your ego by self-awareness. In doing so, you will find the strength and clarity to navigate life's challenges with grace and resilience. Chapter 4. Practical steps to expose and manage your ego. Ego is a subtle yet powerful force. It convinces us that we are more important than we truly are, blinds us to our flaws, and hinders our growth. If left unchecked, it can lead to arrogance, resistance to change, and ultimately, downfall. The Stoics understood this well and emphasized continuous self-examination to keep the ego under control. To effectively manage ego, consider these practical Stoic-inspired steps. 1. Self-reflection. Examine your intentions. The first step in exposing and managing the ego is to engage in deep self-reflection. Ask yourself, why do I want to achieve this? Am I doing this for personal growth or external validation? Is my pride stopping me from admitting a mistake? Marcus Aurelius, in Meditations, constantly reminded himself to reflect on his actions and motivations. Look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look. This practice of introspection helps strip away the illusions of self-importance and guides us toward authenticity. When you regularly assess your thoughts and behaviors, you become less likely to act out of pride or vanity. Actionable practice. Dedicate 10 to 15 minutes daily to journaling your thoughts, actions, and motivations. Identify instances where ego played a role in your decisions and determine how to correct them. 2. Embrace humility. Recognize your limitations. A major cause of unchecked ego is the illusion of superiority, believing we are smarter, better, or more capable than others. True wisdom, however, comes from recognizing the vastness of what we don't know. Epictetus, a former slave turned philosopher, understood this well. It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. When we accept our limitations, we open the door to lifelong learning. The more we embrace humility, the less we feel the need to prove ourselves to others. Actionable practice. The beginner's mindset. Approach every situation as if you are learning from scratch, no matter how experienced you are. Regularly remind yourself of how much there is to learn in your field, relationships, and personal development. 3. Seek constructive feedback. Learn from others. One of the biggest signs of an unchecked ego is resisting criticism. People with inflated egos tend to dismiss feedback because they see it as an attack, rather than an opportunity to improve. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic thinkers, advised, "If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid in extraneous matters." In other words, we must be willing to look ignorant in order to learn. Seeking feedback from others, mentors, peers, even critics, allows us to recognize blind spots and grow beyond them. Actionable practice. Ask trusted people, "What is one thing you think I could improve?" Accept criticism with an open mind, not defensiveness. Remind yourself, feedback is not a personal attack, it's a tool for refinement. 4. Focus on the present. Let go of past achievements and future worries. Many people let their ego dwell on past successes or anxiously crave future recognition. However, both distract us from what truly matters, the present moment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." A person who is ruled by ego is either chasing future validation or clinging to past glory, both of which prevent true fulfillment. The Stoics believed that wisdom comes from engaging fully with the now, rather than being distracted by external validation. Actionable practice. Develop a daily mindfulness habit, such as deep breathing, meditation, or simply being fully present in conversations. When you find yourself reminiscing about past achievements or worrying about the future, ask, what action can I take right now? 5. Serve others. Act without expecting recognition. One of the best ways to expose and weaken the ego is to serve others without expecting anything in return. The ego thrives on self-importance and the need for acknowledgement. By focusing on helping others, we shift our attention away from ourselves and toward a greater purpose. Seneca wisely said, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness." Engaging in acts of kindness humbles us, reminding us that life is not just about our ambitions, but about contributing to something bigger. Actionable practice. Find a way to give back, whether through mentoring, volunteering, or simply being generous with your time and support. Do at least one act of kindness daily, without expecting anything in return. The final lesson. Removing ego reveals our true self. Ryan Holiday, author of Ego is the Enemy, summarized this perfectly. When we remove ego, we're left with what is real. Our true selves are not defined by accolades, pride, or the need to be superior. Instead, we find clarity, wisdom, and a sense of purpose. By continuously confronting and managing our ego, we unlock deeper self-awareness, personal growth, and stronger relationships. The journey of self-mastery is not easy, but it is worth it. Ego may try to take control, but with constant self-examination, humility, and service, we can rise above it, living a life of meaning and wisdom. By following these Stoic-inspired practices, you take a powerful step toward personal mastery, unshackled by the illusions of ego. The path is challenging, but as the Stoics taught, difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. Seneca. Expose your ego, master it, and become the best version of yourself. As we conclude this exploration into managing and exposing the ego, it's essential to remember that true growth stems from self-awareness and humility. By implementing the practices we've discussed, such as self-reflection, embracing humility, seeking constructive feedback, focusing on the present, and serving others, we can navigate life's challenges with a grounded and authentic sense of self. If you found value in this discussion and wish to delve deeper into topics that foster personal development and resilience, consider subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you'll stay updated with our latest content designed to inspire and empower your journey. Thank you for joining us today. Remember, the path to true wisdom begins with understanding oneself. Stay curious, stay humble, and continue striving for personal excellence. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you. Share it with others who might benefit and leave a comment below sharing your thoughts or experiences related to managing ego. Your engagement helps us create more content that matters to you. Until next time, keep reflecting and growing.